Alright, art people. So today we're going to embark on a special journey, if you will. And what we're going to do is we're going to start creating these wonderful illustrations called Zentangles. And I want to give a little preface here. Preface here. This is a type of drawing that is based on patterns. So we're going to learn patterns. And then we're going to apply our own creativity to those patterns to create works of art. And I'm excited to do these. I know this says day one, Zentangle day one. I have a book that I'm kind of going through. It has like 30 days of ideas in it. But we're going to try to do one or two of these a week for the foreseeable future. And to get started, we're going to start with the simplest of patterns. And we're going to be working in our journals. So grab your materials, your journal, a pencil, a black pen, and or a black marker of some kind. Either or of these two. And let's jump into it real quick. So before we get into understanding the patterns, I want to talk a little bit about how to make a Zentangle card. So I'm going to set this aside as well. Here in my sketchbook, I've got some examples of Zentangles that similar to what we're going to be doing over the course of the next couple of weeks. And I wanted to annotate and to show you that I've got about 2 of these on a page in a journal of my size. And each of these is about, I would say, 4 inches by 4 inches square. So to show you this process, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on paper that is approximately the same size so that you can get a better feel of how this works and what this looks like. So you're going to start by creating a square in your journal. And you're going to do this by marking with a pencil 4 dots to create a square. Now, it doesn't need to be a perfect square, but relatively, this is going to let you know where the edges of your square is going to be, and this is going to define your space. Now, if you're working smaller than 4 by 4, you are already doing this wrong. You need to draw large enough so that you're filling your page. Those of you who have larger journals, you might be able to fit 4 on a page, but those of you who have smaller, 2 is about where you want to be. From here, from your 4 corners, if you will, we're going to imagine that we have a piece of string, and we're going to start on one corner and kind of let it move through and touch all 4 of these corners. And this is where you get to kind of input, and again, with pencil, you can start to kind of draw out lines that will connect these and have a few examples of what that could look like. So, first example is here. So I've kind of hit my corners, right? Maybe not perfectly, or maybe I've just touched them, like I get these nice points. Maybe this is where a string started and a string ended. I could also create a line or a pathway around that might have loops. It might have 2 loops in it, and that is really up to you. The most important thing is that you are connecting these dots in a way that is not a straight rulered line. Be free. Let the line flow. All right? That's the kind of whole point. It's meant to be a fluid motion. All right? Fluid motion. Now, from here, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of pretend that that string is continuing internally across the inside of this space. So, again with pencil, imagine I have a string coming off this edge and it loops around and it comes back and back down and then back up and then back down again, right? Similar to what this may look like, right? And this is a way to divide my card into these smaller sections. And it is in these smaller sections that I'm going to create my patterns, my Zentangle patterns that I'll show you very shortly. I have another example as well to kind of go with this type of card. And that is a simpler pattern, because I already have a divide here, where I've kind of pretended like it was two large loops, if you will, to kind of separate this space. And you'll notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 areas here. And in the other one, I have quite a few as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces. This is a good shape for this. I do not expect you or ask you to copy this down as it is, but kind of take that idea in mind of it is this fluid line. It's meant to kind of move around like a piece of string, right? Very fluid in motion. All right. Now, what you should have finished is 4 corners, a line that makes the outside edge, and a line that kind of goes through the center of this thing and breaks it up into smaller sections. And you're going to make sure you do this with pencil only. Pencil only. All right. So a finished one may look like this, of course, in pencil. I did this with a marker to show you what this would look like. I wanted to make sure you could see it. But this is going to be my finished pencil drawing that I will then add in my patterns. All right. So that is the first step. The most difficult step is getting your area set up correctly. And every time I do one of these, this changes a little bit. And that is the coolest part, is every time is a unique opportunity to create something original. All right. So now we're going to move on to our patterns for today. And our day 1 patterns are static, tipple, and the crescent moon. All right. So we're going to start with static being the first pattern. And it's a pretty simple pattern. What I'm going to do is, in one of those spaces on my card, one of these spaces here, right, I'm going to pick an area, and I'm going to create this static pattern. And the way this works is I'm going to create, starting with my pencil, I'm going to pretend, if you will, that there is an area here like this that cuts this pattern off. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a zigzag line. Notice I don't need to use rulers here. And you notice how I stopped where that edge is? Each of these patterns is going to fit in its own little space, and it's not going to move over to the next space. And when we're done, we're going to shade these, and this line is going to kind of disappear. All right. And we're going to let the patterns speak for themselves. Now, once I add this first line in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mimic this shape and space above and below this area. Now, from here, it's a good idea to go over just this zigzag pattern, this static pattern, in pen or in marker. And this is going to help us kind of make this part more permanent. So I have kind of this is a Posca pen, but it could easily be a Sharpie. Now, I do things in pencil first. That way, if I make a mistake, I can easily erase and fix it. There is no big deal. Also, for these, we're going to be doing some shading in pencil. And this is going to allow us to add a lot of depth and value fairly simply. So you may have noticed how I stopped there. All right. Now, I'm going to erase my pencil lines now. Right. And what's going to happen is I have what is called an implied line around the outer edge. So this space here where I had drawn this line will be an implied line, right? Now, the final step of the static pattern is to shade this pattern. You may see the steps. Drawing my line, above, below, and now adding value. We're going to do this with pencil. And what I'd like you to do when it comes to shading is I'd like you to imagine light is either coming from one side or the other. And we're going to shade on the opposite side. So you can imagine these as maybe mountain peaks, or something like that. And I'm going to pretend there's a light source, right? So light is hitting this side, so this is peaked up like it's three-dimensional. It's also hitting this side and this side, but there's shadow here on the other side. And what I'm going to do is, just kind of using my finger, I'm going to blend this in a bit, right? I can erase to clean up my edges if I want to, and I can, if I want to get super fancy, kind of closer I get to this bottom area, I can shade just a little darker to show that there is more depth here than there was in the past, or than there was formerly. All right, and this is a great example of a static pattern. All right, so you can stop the video here and go in and fill in an area or two using the static pattern. Make sure you're shading, and make sure you erase your pencil lines here when you're done, even if it's along the outside here. All right, and I'm going to move on to the second pattern, which is called a tipple. Now, the tipple pattern is a very interesting pattern. It is made up of lots of circles. So to make this a little easier on myself, I'm going to try to draw them a little larger here. And again, I'm thinking of a space within my card here, right? I've got this odd space here. I think this would be a great space for a tipple pattern. And the cool part about the tipple pattern is it likes to cross over just a little bit of where that pencil line is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this area that I have access to, and I'm going to surround the perimeter, the outside edge of this thing, with circles. And again, I'm going to start in pencil. This way, if I mess up, I can easily fix my mistakes. Now, I'm going to act like I'm zooming in pretty close to this thing. But you know what, if you want to draw these large too, this can. And this might be akin to maybe the outside edge. You may see how I'm going across that border as well. Now, because I'm drawing circles, and circles can get very tedious, I love to do this one in pencil first because I find it very easy to make mistakes here. All right, so I went around the outside edge here. All right, now I need to fill in this area using similar size circles. Now you may notice though that you can't get all the little spaces filled for now. And you know what? That is a-okay. You don't need to have like a specific pattern right now to do this. But as best you can, you're going to use the same kind of size stone or pebble, that's the way I like to think about it, to fill in this area, right? And I could go a little bigger, be a little more efficient with my space. I seem to always revert back to a smaller space though. It's okay. All right. Now, after phase 2, it may be difficult to see here, but phase 3 of this is actually to come in and fill in any small areas with little circles, especially these around the edge here. And this is going to help kind of smooth up this area. All right, and any inside areas that previously did not have circles, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw some small circles to kind of fill those spaces. And you know, you might get little areas like this where I can put a few circles on the inside and have it look pretty interesting. Now, once I have this done, of course, I'm going to go back with my pen. Make sure I do everything nice and clean. I'm going to use a actual pen for this, so it's a little finer. All right, I want to make sure that I don't lose these little shapes as I'm drawing, and I'm trying to be very particular about not overlapping in the wrong way, because these are circles. I don't want them to look misformed. All right, and if I have these little itty bitty tiny teeny tiny spaces, I can try to draw little circles in them if I can, and if they're so small that it really doesn't matter, don't worry about it. All right, so give me just a moment. Drawing some circles here. This one is, like I said, a little tedious, but I think it's okay. All right. Get a little more of this corner fleshed out. Oops. Kind of messed up there a little bit, but that's okay. All right. Now, of course, when I'm done going over this with pen, I can erase, and hopefully I'm not going to smear my pen, because that can happen if I'm not careful about letting it dry, right? And what I will be left with is just some nice circles that fill this area. All right. Now, shading a tipple can be a little difficult. We don't have lines to go on like the static pattern, so it's not so perfect. But what we're going to do is we're going to shade in the area of this, similar to well, this is going to be status quo for a lot of things. So any outside area, so here I've just got this kind of corner here. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of shade heavier on the outside edges, right? Kind of smear that in and up. And the goal here is to have the outside edges kind of darker, and as it gets closer to the center, this inside area, it gets lighter. And this is going to help it make it look like it's kind of bubbled around something. And if I'm smearing a lot, I can erase this outside edge. Like, you don't want your shading to go outside of your boundaries on your circle, or it'll break the illusion, right? So hopefully you can kind of see that. I don't want to spend an exuberant amount of time on this one specifically because it's time consuming for the video, but yeah. So perimeter, fill in with smaller, go in and shade the outside edges, and let it get lighter as it gets closer to the inside. All right. And again, now that I've shown you this pattern, you can go in, find a couple spaces in your card, fill it in, and then come back to the video. All right? All right. The third and final pattern, one of my favorites, it is called the Crescent Moon. And this is just a really cool little pattern. I think it looks neat for something like a necklace or something. I'm going to use this kind of in a larger space. The bigger space you have for this, the kind of more interesting. The more round a space you have for this, also the more interesting. So I'm going to pretend like this is just an area. It could be this area here. And I'm going to work on this pattern. So first and foremost, around the outside edge here, I'm going to create these half circles or discs. I might also think about these kind of like I think about a ladybug, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to fill in these discs with our pins. We're going to make them nice and solid. They're going to be filled in. And you may notice where this outside edge is, I'm going to draw a line, right, to make filling in nice and easy. And of course, when we're done with this one, we'll go through and erase before we shade. And these lines will become, they'll become implied lines. Sorry about that. Marker's kind of going on me. All right. So we got our little disc shapes here. All right, now we're going to add what I like to call is like the little Oreo piece. We're going to make a little lip here, all right? And it's going to look like this. I'm going to go kind of close to this. I'm going to pull this kind of shape. I'm going to go all the way around. All right, hopefully you left enough space for these guys to have plenty of room. Okay. And then if I can fit a second ring around them, I will do that. If pieces get too close that they touch, that's okay. Just don't let them cross over. Right at this stage, don't let them cross over. All right. Now, once I'm happy with those, and I see if I need to make any adjustments, erase anywhere, I'm going to go over them with a black pen or a marker. I'm going to use a marker in this case. Because it's what I have handy. Alright, now the next step, pretty cool. We're going to create this really interesting zigzag shape that kind of moves around this space. And it's going to be like a spiral. It's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller as we go closer to the center. And this is just kind of what it looks like. I'm going to follow this edge here, filling it in. And right before I would come back and connect to itself, I'm going to stop like that. And then I'm going to follow. Just like that. I'm going to go over that with a marker. I'm going to go ahead and erase all of my pencil lines. And this is going to set me up right for shading. So give me just a second. Erase all my pencil lines. Right, set me up for shading. Alright, here we go. Now, for this, what we're going to do is we're going to shade inside the crescents, like around the edges here. You may see this gray. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my pencil. I'm going to shade a little bit around all of my circles. Just on the inner one, if you want to do inner, if you have two, if you want to do both, that's fine. That is an option you have. I'm just going to do that first one though. And I'm going to make sure I shade it dark enough so that I can see it pretty well. I don't want to shade over the black too much because it might get a little shiny feel. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly shade just on the inside of my zigzag line. Or sorry, my spiral line. And I'm just going to kind of move in a bit, go around. Right, it almost creates this like spider web look. And I'm just going to kind of quickly go over this with my finger. Right, and that is a crescent moon. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool little crescent moon there. All right. Now again, you can stop the video here. You're going to go in. You're going to find a couple of areas on your card to do the crescent moon pattern. Make sure you shade things in. And yeah. When we're done with our cards, they should be fully filled in. Fully meaning there are no spaces that are left white except for the outside. All of these lines will be pencil lines, and you'll have erased and shaded, and everything will look nice and complete. And then you're going to upload them into the classroom, or Canvas, actually. So I very much can't wait to see what you guys come up with this first Zentangle. The next of these videos will be a lot shorter, as this one sets up the explanation. And I will see you guys next time.